But right now, we want to bring on our honored guest, Douglas Rushkoff, notable author, advocate for humanity. Good sir, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How you doing?
Ah, boy. You know,
Yeah.
grateful. I am grateful. I need to acknowledge my own privilege, and I have so many things to be grateful for. When I think about the state of humanity, it makes me also grateful to talk to you because also of my concern. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I mean, I know it's like this honor to be talking with you and having the privilege of being on the radio and all, but I mean, I wish it was under better circumstances, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So your basic case, and I'll start from kind of first principles, your basic case is team human. Explain.
Well, I believe that being human is a team sport and that human beings are more powerful and kind of realize their purpose and vision and solidarity together when they're working together and collaborating. And we've many of us anyway have bought into this myth of that evolution is some battle for survival of the fittest individual, and we've built a whole society around that, and we built an internet then that a lot of us thought was going to kind of reverse that trend and reconnect people in new ways, and we use that to further isolate and atomize people, and now we're estranged, and we can't even look at each other in the eye, much less forge the kind of teamwork that's going to be necessary to arrest the extractive forces of corporate capitalism.
Radio might have done a better job, but I know that was the critique of television, that it was something that could bring us closer together, and instead it has felt like something that has divided us. The internet, you made the same case. For every Wikipedia, there is an Amazon, a Facebook, an Instagram, and a Google upon which people might throw rocks at their bus. What are things that you think we ought to be paying more attention to that we aren't? I mean, there is now sort of an anti-Facebook effort emerging. It is still much smaller than Facebook. What are things that you want to highlight and lift up?
Well, I think people are waking up to the problems that are happening. I mean, I'm actually, in spite of my fear and upset, I'm actually also really hopeful at the same time. I feel like people are coming to understand that pretty much any medium that we use, not just the internet, but you're right, television, radio, text, speech even, all of the media that we use to connect to each other are the equivalent of drugs. They all have biases, in one way or another. Your mind on the internet is different than your mind off it. You go on Facebook and you're on Facebook. You go on English even, and your mind, your consciousness works differently. That's why you'll see a monk go on a vow of silence for a month. It's not that they're trying to crash their ego. It's that they understand that language itself makes their brain work differently. And I think people are seeing that. I think people are coming to understand that human beings in the real world have the home field advantage. And whenever we're out in one of these more abstracted, digital mediated spaces, that's where things become less pure, and we have the potential for what I like to call non-player characters to have a bigger effect. So capitalism is another operating system that I think people are becoming more aware of. I think even digital developers, I mean, kids like Mark Zuckerberg or Sergey and Larry at Google, they understood the technological operating systems they were using, but they were just college kids, and they hadn't been educated enough to understand there was an economic operating system beneath all the platforms they were building. And I feel like people now are becoming aware of that. People see the way our money system turns people against each other, that it forces competition for whoever can get the extra money to pay back the interest, to pay the whoever's invested in them, that there's this game that's been set up. And I think people are seeing that they're becoming more aware of, how does this platform make me feel? How does this activity make me feel? And is this required? Is this necessary? And even rather than turning to revolution or violence in that kind of traditional fashion, I think people are open to the idea of Renaissance, that we can retrieve some of the values and ideas and customs and cultures that have been repressed over the last 400 years and bring them to bear to avert, climate catastrophe, the uneven distribution of wealth and repression of peoples around the world.
You already answered you pre-answered maybe 25% of my question, but do you see this as more a technology problem, more of a greed problem, more of a public policy / economic system problem, or D, some combination, or E, none of the above, something else entirely?
I mean, it's a combination of all these things, and that's really the work of writing this book. To sort of create a manifesto was to figure out sort of what's the common thread in all of these problems, in our technological problem, our market problem, our war problem, our the immigration problem, and it really has to do, I think, with not seeing the intrinsic value of human beings. That we tend to look at human beings in terms of their utility value rather than any intrinsic value. And it's sort of unpopular in modern scientific intellectual circles to say that maybe something more is going on here. That what I'm really arguing, in a sense, is that human beings have a soul. And even if you don't believe that we have souls, we have soul. We have soul, that there's something animating us, that, like Mr. Rogers used to tell us, you are special just the way you are. You don't need to earn your keep. You don't need to provide data or cash or something to that system. And when we don't look at other people as humans, well, that's when many of us believe that whoever's on the other side of the Mexican border is somehow less than human, and we could put up this wall and keep them out because, well, they're not like us, they're terrorists or MA-13s or something different. Likewise, when we see the picture of the kid with the MAGA hat on Twitter and instantly judge, oh, that's not a real person, that's a dehuman. No, there's a person in there too. If we can't see the person with the MAGA hat as human, how do we expect the MAGA hat person to see the Mexican as human? So I feel like that all of our technologies and capitalism and colonialism, all the sort of the operating systems that we've been working under, certainly for the last 400 or 500 years, are about removing humans from the equation, not really letting humans create value, exchange value amongst themselves. And that's what we have to return to.
One other question. Well, I don't want to promise only one other question, but we have probably time for one other question. How do you count? How do you evaluate? One big advantage that capital markets have, that the transaction of goods and services in exchange for money has, is that you can count. If you're doing better versus worse, at least across those vectors. When you're talking about soul, or if you're talking about souls, you're talking about human value. How do we evaluate that? How do we count?
It's interesting. I mean, I would argue you stop counting. Even in Torah, they argue you can't count people. Census was really against the rules. And I think that's really the thing, that real life is not can't be subjected to
that is an excellent place.
There's something beyond them.
That's an excellent place to stop. Douglas Rushkoff, thank you so much for being with us. This is Thom Show.
Thank you.